had been a translator for the United Earth Diplomatic Corps for 7 years. He had worked with dozens of alien species. He had learned their languages, studied their customs, and helped build bridges between Earth and the stars. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. The Empire had finally agreed to peace talks. After 3 decades of cold silence and border tensions, they were willing to sit at the same table as humans. It was the biggest diplomatic event in Earth's history and was chosen to be the lead translator. He stood in the main conference room of the Earth's finest diplomatic vessel. The room was large and circular, with tall windows that showed the endless darkness of space outside. Human officials sat on one side of the long table, their faces serious and hopeful at the same time. The door on the opposite side opened with a soft hiss. The warriors entered first. They were tall and powerful, covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Each one carried weapons at their sides, and they moved with the smooth grace of trained killers. Their skin was, and their eyes glowed a soft yellow in the dim light. Had seen pictures of before. He knew they were a warrior race, proud and fierce. Their empire stretched across 100 star systems, and they had never lost a war. Humans had been very careful to avoid fighting them. The warriors took their positions around the room, standing guard. Then the main group entered. There were 3 officials, dressed in formal robes over their armor. They walked slowly, their heads held high. Behind them came the person had been waiting to see. Commander of the 3rd Fleet. She was famous across the galaxy. Her name was spoken with fear and respect by every species that knew of the. She had won dozens of battles, crushed rebellions, and defended her empire against enemies that most humans could not even imagine. She was considered the greatest warrior of her generation. Watched her enter the room. She wore full battle armor, black and gold, with symbols of her victories carved into the metal. Her helmet covered her entire face, giving her the appearance of a faceless war machine. She moved with absolute confidence, each step precise and measured. The human officials shifted nervously in their seats. Even Captain, who led their delegation, looked tense. Everyone knew that the success of these talks depended on keeping Commander satisfied. Stepped forward to begin the formal greetings. He had memorized the phrases for weeks. He knew exactly what to say, how to bow, and when to make eye contact. He was ready. On behalf of United Earth, we welcome the honored representatives of the Empire, he said in perfect. His voice was steady, his pronunciation clean. We are grateful for this opportunity to speak. The officials nodded in approval. Even the warriors seemed slightly impressed. Learning their language was considered a sign of deep respect. Commander stepped forward. She stopped in front of, looking down at him through her dark helmet. He was not a short man, but she was taller by a full head. Up close, her armor looked even more impressive. He could see the marks of real battle on its surface. Your words are acceptable, human, she said. Her voice came through her helmet, deep and mechanical. We will see if your actions match them. She reached up and pressed something on the side of her helmet. There was a soft click, and she began to remove it. Had seen faces before in pictures. They had skin, sharp features, and those glowing yellow eyes. He expected Commander to look fierce and terrifying, like the monster of 1,000 war stories. The helmet came off. Stopped breathing. Her face was nothing like he expected. Yes, her skin was, a soft silver color that seemed to glow gently in the room's light. Yes, her eyes were yellow, but they were large and bright, framed by long dark lashes. Her features were sharp but delicate, with high cheekbones and a small nose. Her white hair was cut short, falling just above her shoulders in soft waves. She looked young, much younger than he had imagined, and her expression, though serious, had a softness to it that did not match her fearsome reputation at all. The word slipped out before could stop it. Adorable. He said it in English. He said it quietly, barely above a whisper. He did not mean to say it out loud at all. It was just a thought that escaped his lips without permission. But the room went completely silent. The warriors froze. The officials stared at him with wide eyes. Even the human delegation looked confused and worried. Commander's yellow eyes locked onto his face. Her expression changed from neutral to something he could not read. And then her skin began to change color. It started at her cheeks, a soft pink that spread quickly. Within seconds, her entire face had turned a deep, bright red. The color extended down her neck and disappeared under her armor. His heart dropped into his stomach. I am sorry, he stammered, switching to, I did not mean to. You spoke, said. Her voice was no longer mechanical without her helmet. It was clear and sharp, and right now it was shaking slightly. You spoke the old word. Did not understand. He had spoken English. How could she know what he said? One of the officials stepped forward. His face was pale, which guessed was their version of shock. The commander's translator implant, the official said slowly. It converted your word into our language, into the old language. Felt cold sweat forming on his back. What word? What did it translate to? The official looked deeply uncomfortable. There is no direct translation back to your tongue, but the closest meaning would be, precious one, cherished treasure, the word we use only for those we wish to court, for those we desire to bond with for life. The room remained completely silent. Looked at Commander, the fierce warrior who had conquered star systems, who had never shown weakness in battle, who was feared across the galaxy. She was standing before him with a face as red as a sunset, unable to meet his eyes. Her warriors were staring at her with expressions of complete disbelief. The officials looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. I did not mean, started again. Silence, said, but her voice cracked on the word. She took a step back, then another. This meeting is postponed. We will resume tomorrow. She turned and walked quickly toward the door, her warriors scrambling to follow. Just before she left, saw her press her hands against her red cheeks, as if trying to hide them. The door closed behind her. Captain slowly turned to look at. Her expression was a mixture of horror and confusion. What, she said very carefully, did you just do? Stood frozen in place, his mind racing. He had trained for years to avoid exactly this kind of mistake. He had studied culture extensively. He knew their greetings, their insults, their formal phrases. But nobody had ever told him that calling someone adorable was the same as a marriage proposal. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I think, he said slowly, that I might have accidentally proposed to the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy. The silence that followed was the loudest thing he'd ever heard. The emergency meeting lasted for 3 hours. Sat in a small conference room surrounded by human diplomats, military advisors, and cultural experts. Everyone was talking at once, and most of the talking was about how badly he had ruined everything. They could see this as an insult, said Admiral Park, his face tight with worry. They might cancel the peace talks entirely. Or worse, added Doctor, the cultural specialist, they might see it as an act of aggression, a deliberate attempt to humiliate their commander. Kept his head down. He had apologized a dozen times already. He had explained that it was an accident, that he never meant to say the word out loud, that he had no idea the translator would convert it into something so significant. Nobody seemed to care about his explanations. We need to send a formal apology, Captain said. She was packing back and forth, her boots clicking against the metal floor. Something official, something that makes it clear this was a cultural misunderstanding. That might make things worse, Doctor warned. In culture, apologizing for a declaration of courtship is considered complicated. It could suggest that found the commander unworthy, that he was mocking her. Groaned and put his head in his hands. Every solution seemed to create more problems. What exactly does this word mean to them? Admiral Park asked. You said it was a courtship term. How serious are we talking? Doctor pulled up information on her tablet. Among the verbal declarations of romantic intent are rare and extremely significant. They are a warrior culture. They show affection through actions, not words. To actually speak a word of endearment, especially the old word that the translator used, is considered one of the most intimate things a person can do. She paused, looking uncomfortable. It is essentially a public announcement that you have chosen someone as your life partner, in front of witnesses, no less. Her entire guard saw it happen. Wanted to sink through the floor. There has to be a way to fix this, Captain said. Some kind of ritual or ceremony that undoes it. There is, Doctor admitted slowly. But it requires the commander to publicly reject the declaration. She would have to say, in front of witnesses, that is unworthy of her, that he is beneath her consideration. Then let her do that, Admiral Park said quickly. Problem solved. Doctor shook her head. You do not understand. For a warrior to reject a courtship declaration, they must give reasons. Specific reasons. They must list the faults of the person who made the declaration. It is considered necessary to protect their honor and explain why they are refusing. So what? Let her list my faults, said tiredly. I have plenty. Tell her I am clumsy or foolish or bad at my job, whatever she needs to say. That is the problem, Doctor said. You have not shown any faults, not in terms anyway. You learned their language perfectly. You showed proper respect during the ceremony. You even made the declaration in front of witnesses, which takes courage. By their standards, you have behaved honorably. Stared at her. So you are saying she cannot reject me because I have been too polite? Essentially, yes. If she rejects you without good reason, she would be seen as cold and heartless. It would damage her reputation among her own people. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. This is insane, Admiral Park muttered. Captain stopped packing. What happens if she does not reject him? What happens if this just stays unresolved? Doctor looked at her tablet again. According to tradition, an unanswered declaration remains open. The commander would be expected to consider it, to spend time with the person who made the declaration, to test their worthiness through interaction. Interaction, repeated nervously. Conversation, shared meals, joint activities. The courtship period typically lasts several months. Only after spending significant time together can the declaration be properly accepted or refused. Leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. He had accidentally locked himself and the most feared warrior in the galaxy into some kind of forced courtship ritual. Captain rubbed her temples. All right, let me understand this correctly. Our translator accidentally proposed to the commander. She cannot reject him without looking cruel. And if she does not reject him, she is expected to spend months getting to know him. That is correct, Doctor confirmed. And what about our peace talks? That is actually interesting, Doctor said, her expression brightening slightly. If the commander is engaged in a courtship ritual with a human, she cannot end diplomatic relations with humanity. It would be seen as dishonorable to negotiate with one hand while courting with the other. She must complete the courtship before making any aggressive moves. Admiral Park sat up. So this accident might actually help the peace talks. It might delay any conflict at least. They take honor very seriously. As long as the courtship is ongoing, Commander is bound to treat humanity with a certain level of respect. Did not feel comforted by this news. Being a political tool was not much better than being a diplomatic disaster. So what do I do? He asked. Just wait for her to find some fault with me. Doctor hesitated. That would be the simplest solution. If you behave badly, if you show weakness or dishonor, she can use that as grounds for rejection. But you must be careful. If your behavior is too obviously fake, they will see through it. And that would be considered an even greater insult. closed his eyes. He had to make Commander dislike him, but he could not be too obvious about it. He had to give her a real reason to reject him, but he could not damage the peace talks in the process. It was impossible. A soft chime came from the room's communication system. "Captain," said a voice, "we have received a message from the vessel. Commander has requested. She has requested a private dinner with the human translator, tonight." Everyone in the room turned to look at. His heart began to pound. "She is beginning the courtship rituals," Doctor whispered. "Already, she is moving faster than expected." "Why would she do that?" Captain asked. Doctor thought for a moment. "Perhaps she wants to resolve this quickly, find a fault in as soon as possible so she can reject him and move on. Or perhaps," Admiral Park said slowly, "she wants to see if there is any truth to the declaration. Perhaps she is curious about the human who called her adorable." Felt his face growing warm. "That is ridiculous. I am sure she is angry. She probably wants to interrogate me or threaten me or—" "Do not threaten during courtship," Doctor interrupted. "It would be deeply inappropriate. Whatever her intentions, she will be polite. She will be receptive." The word hung in the air. Remembered the color of his face when she had left the conference room, that deep, bright red that spread across her skin, the way her voice had cracked, the way she had pressed her hands against her cheeks. She had been embarrassed, flustered, caught completely off guard. He had expected rage, or offense, or cold dismissal. Instead, the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy had blushed like a schoolgirl and fled the room. What did that mean? "I should refuse," said weakly. "Tell her I am sick or busy or—" "You cannot refuse," Doctor said firmly. "To refuse a courtship invitation is the same as admitting you made the declaration as a joke. It would be a terrible insult. War would become much more likely." Stood up from his chair. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on the warship, Commander was preparing for their dinner. He wondered if she was as nervous as he was. Probably not. She had conquered worlds. A dinner with an awkward human translator was probably nothing to her. "What should I wear?" he asked quietly. He heard Captain sigh behind him. "I will have a formal suit prepared," she said, "and try not to propose to anyone else tonight." He did not laugh. He was too terrified to find anything funny. In a few hours, he would be sitting across from Commander, the warrior who had made emperors surrender with a single look. He would have to make conversation with her. He would have to eat with her. He would have to somehow survive the most uncomfortable dinner of his entire life. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a tiny voice whispered a question he did not want to answer. What if she really was adorable? The dinner took place in a private room on the warship, was escorted there by two silent warriors who watched his every move. They did not speak to him, but their eyes followed him like he was a strange animal that might do something unexpected at any moment. The room itself was surprisingly elegant. Soft lights glowed from the walls, casting warm shadows across the space. A low table sat in the center, surrounded by cushions for sitting. Strange flowers decorated the corners, their petals a deep purple color that had never seen before. Commander was already waiting for him. She had changed out of her battle armor. Instead, she wore a simple robe of dark blue fabric, tied at the waist with a silver cord. Without her armor, she looked smaller than before, more human somehow. Her white hair was loose around her shoulders, and her skin seemed softer in the gentle light. She did not look at him when he entered. Her yellow eyes were fixed on the table, and her hands were folded tightly in her lap. Noticed that her cheeks had a slight pink color to them already. "Please sit," she said. Her voice was quiet, nothing like the commanding tone she had used in the conference room. "The food will arrive soon." Walked carefully to the table and lowered himself onto the cushion across from her. The room was very quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat. "Thank you for inviting me," he said in. He had practiced the phrase 100 times during the last few hours. "I am honored." His cheeks grew slightly darker. "You speak our language well. Few humans bother to learn it." "Languages are my work, and your language is beautiful." She finally looked up at him. Her yellow eyes were bright and sharp, studying his face with an intensity that made him feel exposed. He wondered what she was searching for. "You are nervous," she said. It was not a question. Considered lying but decided against it. "Very nervous. You are famous across the galaxy. Most people would be afraid to share a meal with you." Something flickered across her face. It might have been surprise or amusement or something else entirely. "Are you afraid of me?" she asked. Thought about the question carefully. "I am afraid of many things right now. I am afraid of saying something wrong. I am afraid of making another mistake. I am afraid of causing problems for my people." He paused. "But I am not afraid of you, not in the way you mean." Tilted her head slightly. "Explain." "I have read about your battles, I know what you have done, but I have also seen how your people look at you, with respect, yes, but also with care. You are not just a weapon to them, you are someone they believe in, someone they trust." He met her eyes. A truly cruel person would not inspire that kind of loyalty. The pink in her cheeks spread deeper, turning into that familiar red. She looked away quickly. "You are strange," she murmured. "Humans are strange." The door opened and servants entered with trays of food. They moved silently, placing dishes on the table before disappearing just as quickly. The food was foreign too, colorful and arranged with artistic care. He recognized none of it. "I do not know if human bodies can process food," said, sounding slightly worried for the first time. "We prepared simple dishes. They should be safe." Picked up what looked like a utensil and examined the nearest dish. It was a type of vegetable, purple and steaming, covered in a light sauce. He took a bite. It was delicious, sweet and savory at the same time, with a texture like soft bread. "This is wonderful," he said honestly. Watched him eat with obvious curiosity. "You are not just saying that to be polite." "I am saying it because it is true. This might be the best thing I have ever tasted." A small smile appeared on her lips. It was tiny, barely visible, but it transformed her entire face. For a moment, she looked young and happy instead of serious and distant. Felt something warm spread through his chest at the sight. They ate in silence for a while, tried each dish, and watched his reactions carefully. She seemed pleased when he enjoyed something and worried when he hesitated. It was oddly endearing, this powerful warrior who was nervous about whether her guest liked the food. "May I ask you something?" said eventually. Nodded. "The word I used, the one that caused all this trouble, you could have been angry, you could have treated it as an insult, but you did not. Why?" She set down her utensil and was quiet for a long moment. "Among my people," she said slowly, "words of affection are rare. We show our feelings through actions, through service, through protection. To speak such words aloud is considered intimate, private. Most go their entire lives without hearing them." She looked at him, and her eyes held something vulnerable. "I have led armies, I have conquered worlds, I have stood before emperors and made them bow, but no one has ever called me adorable. No one has ever looked at me and seen something soft, something worth cherishing." His heart ached at her words. "When you said it," she continued, "I knew it was a mistake. I knew you did not mean it the way our traditions interpret it, but for one moment I felt." She stopped, struggling to find the words. "You felt seen," finished quietly. "Not as a commander or a warrior, just as yourself." She stared at him with wide eyes. The red had spread across her entire face now, reaching the tips of her ears. "Yes," she whispered. "How did you know?" "Because I understand loneliness," said. "I have spent my life learning to speak other people's languages, to understand other cultures. But I often feel like no one tries to understand me. I am just a tool, a bridge between worlds, not a person." The room felt smaller suddenly, more intimate. The distance between them seemed less important. "We are similar then," said. "Both of us trapped by our roles, both of us wishing someone would see the truth of who we are." Nodded slowly. "I suppose we are." They looked at each other across the table. The silence was comfortable now, filled with a new kind of understanding. Found himself studying her face, noticing details he had missed before. The way her eyes caught the light, the small scar above her left eyebrow, the gentle curve of her lips. She really was adorable, not despite being a fearsome warrior, but somehow because of it. The contrast between her reputation and her reality made her seem more real, more genuine. "The courtship ritual," said, breaking the silence. "Tradition says I should spend time with you, learn about you, decide if you are worthy." "And what have you decided so far?" She picked up her utensil again and began to eat. "I have decided that I do not hate this. Spending time with you, talking with you." She glanced at him sideways. "Perhaps humans are not as foolish as I thought." Laughed softly. "That might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said about my species." "Do not let it go to your head," she warned, but there was warmth in her voice. They continued eating, and the conversation flowed more easily now. Asked about Earth, about human customs, about life before becoming a translator. He asked about her childhood, her training, her hopes for the future of her people. With each question, they drew closer together, not physically but in understanding. Began to see the person behind the legend, and he suspected was doing the same with him. When the meal finally ended, they stood together at the door. "This was pleasant," admitted. The red had faded from her cheeks, but a soft pink remained. "I did not expect that." "Neither did I," said. "Thank you for giving me this chance." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "There will be more dinners," she said. "The ritual demands it, but I find myself not opposed to the idea." Smiled. "I find myself feeling the same way." He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. He looked back. "The word you used," she said softly. "If you were to say it again, knowing what it means now, would you still say it?" The question hung in the air between them. Thought about everything he had learned tonight, the loneliness she carried, the softness she hid, the way her smile had made his heart beat faster. "Yes," he said, "I would." And for the first time since they met, Commander smiled fully. It was bright and genuine and absolutely beautiful. Walked back to his ship with his mind full of questions, and his heart full of something he was not ready to name. 3 weeks passed. The peace talks continued during the days and spent his evenings with Commander. Sometimes they shared meals. Sometimes they walked through the observation decks of their ships, looking at the stars. Sometimes they simply sat together in comfortable silence. The other diplomats noticed the change. The officials seemed less hostile. The human delegation was cautiously optimistic. Whatever was happening between and was having a positive effect on the negotiations. But not everyone was happy about it. First heard about Commander from one of the servants who brought him tea. She was a young female with nervous eyes, and she spoke quickly, as if afraid of being caught. "Be careful, human," she whispered. "Commander has been watching you. He does not approve of the Commander's attention to a human." Before could ask more questions, she hurried away. He asked about that evening. They were sitting in her private quarters, a room filled with books and strange artifacts from her conquests. She had been showing him a star map of her empire when his question made her go still. She said flatly, "He leads the Second Fleet. He has wanted to bond with me for many years." "Bond with you, you mean like courtship?" "He has made his interest clear many times. I have refused him each time." She looked at with serious eyes. "He believes I refuse because I think no warrior is worthy of me. The fact that I am now spending time with a human," she shook her head. "He sees it as a personal insult." Felt a cold knot form in his stomach. What will he do? I do not know, is proud and ambitious. He follows tradition, but he finds ways to bend it to his advantage. You should be careful around him. The warning came too late. The next morning was walking through the neutral meeting area between the two ships when he found his path blocked. A massive warrior stood before him, easily twice his width and a head taller. His armor was red and black, marked with symbols of rank and achievement. "Commander." "So you are the human," said. His voice was deep and filled with contempt. "The one who thinks he can court our greatest warrior." Others gathered around them. Some humans appeared too, watching from a safe distance, knew this was not a chance meeting, had planned this confrontation. "I meant no disrespect," said carefully. "What happened was an accident of translation. I never intended." "Silence," cut him off. "Your intentions do not matter. What matters is that you have claimed something that does not belong to you. Commander is the pride of our people. She deserves a warrior worthy of her strength, not a weak, soft-skinned translator who cannot even hold a weapon." Kept his voice calm. "Commander can make her own choices. It is not for you or me to decide what she deserves." His eyes flashed with anger. "You dare speak of her choices. You know nothing of our ways. You know nothing of what it means to be." He stepped closer, towering over. "I challenge you." The gathered crowd went silent. His heart began to race. "Challenge me to what?" "Combat, single combat by the old laws. You have made a claim on, I dispute that claim. Tradition allows me to challenge you for the right to court her." A cruel smile spread across his face. "When I defeat you, your claim will be void, and everyone will see that humans are too weak to deserve attention. And if I refuse the challenge, then you admit your claim was false. You admit you are unworthy. The peace talks will be shattered because your people will be seen as liars and cowards." Raised his voice so everyone could hear. "What will it be, human? Fight and die, or run and prove your weakness?" Looked around at the watching faces. The warriors were eager, hungry for the fight. The human diplomats looked terrified. He could see Captain in the crowd, her face pale with worry. He knew what the logical choice was. He should refuse. He should accept the shame and protect the peace talks. His life was not worth risking war. But then he thought of the way she smiled when they talked, the vulnerability she had shown him, the loneliness they shared. If he refused, if he admitted he was unworthy, it would hurt her too. It would prove that all humans were liars, that his words meant nothing. He could not do that to her. "I accept," said. The words surprised him as much as anyone else, but once they were spoken, he could not take them back. Laughed, brave and foolish, very human. "The combat will take place tomorrow at sunrise. I suggest you spend your last night saying goodbye to your people." He turned and walked away, his warriors following. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with whispered conversations. Captain rushed to his side. "Are you insane? He will kill you. You have no combat training, no weapons experience. This is suicide." "I know," said quietly, "but refusing would have been worse." He returned to his quarters and tried to prepare for what was coming. He had never been a fighter. His weapons were words, not swords. Against a trained warrior, he had no chance. The door to his quarters opened. Stood in the doorway, her face tight with emotion. "You should not have accepted," she said, stepping inside. "Is one of our finest fighters. He has never lost a duel." "I know." "Then why would you throw your life away?" Turned to face her. "Because if I refused, everyone would think I never meant what I said. They would think all my words were lies, and maybe some of them were lies at first. I did not mean to say that word in the conference room, but everything after that, every conversation we have had, every moment we have shared," he shook his head. "That was real, and I will not make it seem like it meant nothing." Stared at him. Her yellow eyes were wet, shimmering in the low light. "You are going to die for words," she said. "For feelings. This is not how think. We fight for territory, for resources, for power. Not for—" she struggled with the concept. Not for love, offered quietly. The word hung between them. Neither of them had used it before. It felt dangerous and fragile and true. I cannot let this happen, said. Her voice was shaking. I will stop the duel. I will reject your claim publicly, give what he wants. That will end this. And then what? He will have one. He will think you belong to him now. Is that what you want? I do not want you to die. The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. She grabbed his arms, her grip strong enough to bruise. Her face was inches from his, and he could see the fear in her eyes. I have lost soldiers before, she said. I have watched warriors die in battle. I have made the choices that sent them to their deaths. But this is different. You are different. I cannot watch you fall and do nothing. Reached up and gently touched her face. Her skin was warm under his fingers. Then do not watch, he said. Trust me. Let me find my own way. What way? You cannot defeat him in combat. It is impossible. Maybe, but impossible things happen sometimes. He smiled softly. A human translator accidentally proposed to a commander. That was impossible too. Closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek, leaving a silver trail. If you die tomorrow, she whispered, I will destroy. I will tear his fleet apart. I will burn everything he has ever built. That sounds like it would start a civil war. I do not care. Leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. They stood there together, breathing the same air, sharing the same fear. I am not going to die, he said. I promise. How can you promise that? Because I have too many reasons to live now, and the most important one is standing right in front of me. Made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You are impossible, she said. So I have been told. They stayed together through the night, talking and holding each other. Neither of them slept. When the first light of the artificial sunrise began to glow through the windows, rose and prepared to face his fate. He had no weapons, no armor, and no combat skills. All he had were his words and his courage. He hoped it would be enough. The combat arena was a large open space in the center of the neutral zone. Both ships had extended their docking bridges to create a circular platform surrounded by transparent walls. Stars sparkled in the endless darkness beyond. Hundreds of spectators gathered to watch. Warriors filled one side, their faces eager and hungry. Human diplomats and crew members stood on the other side, their expressions worried and grim. This was not just a duel. This was a judgment on humanity itself. Walked into the arena wearing simple clothes. No armor, no weapons. He had asked for none. They had offered him basic equipment out of tradition, but he had refused. He knew that no amount of armor would save him from blade. Commander entered from the opposite side. He wore full battle armor, polished and gleaming. A massive sword hung at his side, its edge sharp enough to split light. He looked at with disgust. You come unarmed, said. Is this surrender? No, replied calmly. This is choice. The crowd murmured in confusion. An official stepped forward to oversee the duel. By ancient law, this combat will decide the validity of the human's courtship claim on commander. If the challenger wins, the claim is void. If the human wins, the official paused, clearly not expecting this outcome. The claim stands. Combat begins when the signal sounds. Looked across the arena at. She stood at the front of the crowd, her hands clenched at her sides. Her face was pale and her eyes never left him. He gave her a small nod. The signal sounded. Drew his sword and charged forward with terrifying speed. Did not move. He stood completely still, his arms at his sides, watching the warrior approach. The crowd gasped. Sword swung in a deadly arc, aimed its neck. It would be a clean kill, fast and final. But at the last moment stopped. The blade hung in the air, inches from skin. His arm trembled with the effort of holding back the strike. Why do you not move? Demanded. Why do you not fight? Because I have nothing to prove, said quietly. Not to you. His face twisted with rage. You mock me. You think this is a game. I think you have already lost. The words struck like a physical blow. He stepped back, confusion mixing with his anger. Turned to face the crowd. When he spoke, his voice was loud and clear, carrying across the entire arena. I am not a warrior. I have never held a sword. I cannot defeat Commander in combat, and I never expected to. But that was never the point of this duel. He looked at, you challenged me because you believe strength is everything. You believe that power decides who is worthy, but you are wrong. The way is the warrior's way, growled. Strength is all that matters. Then why has Commander refused you for so many years? Silence fell over the arena. His face went red with humiliation. You are strong, continued. Everyone knows this. You have won battles, conquered enemies, proven yourself 100 times over, but strength alone is not enough, not for someone like. He turned to face her now, speaking directly to her across the distance. When I called her adorable, I did not know what the word meant, but I have learned since then, and I understand now why it matters. They use words of affection so rarely because words are honest. They cannot be faked like actions. They cannot be performed like strength. When you speak a word of love, you reveal your true heart. He looked back at, you have never given words. You have given her demonstrations of power, displays of skill, proof of your rank. But you have never told her how you truly feel, because you are afraid. You are afraid that your heart is not enough, that without your strength you are nothing. Raised his sword again. I will kill you for this. Then kill me, said simply. Prove that I am right. Show everyone that all you understand is violence. Show Commander that she was right to refuse you. The sword wavered in its grip. His eyes darted to, then back to. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. The crowd waited in breathless silence. Stepped forward. She walked into the arena, her steps slow and deliberate. Every eye followed her. Enough, she said. Turned to her. Commander, this duel is not finished. I have not. You have not won, interrupted. And you will not, because is right. You have never understood what I wanted, what I needed. She walked past without looking at him. She stopped in front of, her yellow eyes searching his face. You stood unarmed against a warrior who wanted to kill you, she said. You offered no defense, no resistance. Any other being in the galaxy would have run or fought or begged, but you just stood there. I trusted you, said. I knew you would not let him kill me. His eyes widened. You knew, how could you know? Because I know you now. I have seen who you are beneath the armor and the reputation. You protect those you care about. You always have. He smiled. I was just betting that you cared about me. For a long moment, said nothing. Then slowly she reached up and touched his face. Her fingers were gentle, tracing the line of his jaw. You are the strangest being I have ever met, she said. You are weak in body but strong in spirit. You fight without weapons. You conquer without armies. You have turned my entire world upside down with a single word. She turned to face the crowd, keeping her hand on his cheek. I reject challenge, she announced. Not because the human defeated him in combat, but because combat was never the true test. The true test was courage. The true test was honesty. The true test was being willing to die for something beyond strength. She looked at, who stood frozen with his sword still raised. Go back to your fleet, find someone who wants what you have to offer, but know that it will never be me. It was never going to be me. Sword lowered slowly. His face was a mask of shock and shame. Without a word, he turned and walked out of the arena. His warriors followed, their heads down. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then, one by one, they began to nod. Some even smiled. They had witnessed something unprecedented. A human had faced a warrior with nothing but words and had won. Captain pushed through the human crowd, her face a mixture of relief and disbelief. I cannot believe that worked. Neither can I, admitted. Laughed. It was a bright, genuine sound that made his heart soar. "I have one more thing to say," she announced to the watching crowds. "According to our traditions, the courtship ritual allows me to accept or reject the human's claim. I have considered carefully. I have spent time with this human, learned about him, tested his worthiness." She turned to face, her eyes shining. "I accept his claim. Of Earth, you are worthy. You are worthy of my time, my attention, and my heart. In front of these witnesses, I declare you mine." The crowd erupted. They cheered, a roaring sound of approval. The humans stared in amazement. Somewhere, Admiral Park fainted. Barely noticed any of it. All he could see was face, close to his, bright with joy. "I cannot believe this is real," he whispered. "It is real," she said. "All of it, every impossible moment." "What happens now? What about the peace talks? What about our peoples?" Smiled. "The peace talks will continue, but now they will be more than just politics. They will be a bond between our peoples, made real by the bond between us." She leaned closer. "Is that not what you humans call a happy ending?" Laughed. "I think we might call it the beginning, actually." He pulled her close, and, in front of hundreds of watching eyes from two different civilizations, he whispered the word that had started everything. "Adorable." His cheeks turned bright red. Some things, decided, never got old.